Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you to today's panel discussion on significance of quality and safety in toys, which is being organized by FICCI during the India Toy Fair 2021. We are pleased to be joined by Mr. Adil Bhai, Chairman, Quality Council of India. He would also be chairing today's panel discussion. Mr. Adil Bhai retired as Chairman of McKinsey India after 34 years at McKinsey and the last 10 in India. Prior to returning to India, he led the Washington office of McKinsey. Over the last 10 years in India, he has worked directly with the CEOs and promoters of some of the major companies in India and globally. He is currently also on the board of Reliance Industries Limited, L&T Limited, Network 18 and Cipla. Also joining amongst us is an esteemed panel comprising of Mr. Christian Wetterberg, Senior Director and Global Head, Product Safety and Compliance, Lego Group, Mr. Joseph Vinayas, Senior Vice President, Global Quality, Product Safety and Regulatory Compliance, Metal, and Mr. Sanjeev Khullar, Managing Director, Sourcing India and Southeast Asia, Hasbro. I now request Mr. Adil Bhai to take the session forward.
Thank you very much, Pultika, and let me once again welcome our panelists. I think these are all names that if you are anything in toys or if you have children or in my case, grandchildren, these are all names that are familiar to us and are well-loved names in the toy industry. So I'm delighted to have all of you over here. I'm particularly delighted because each of you has played a significant role in thinking about quality and safety across the world. Many of you are on standards panels around the world. Many of you have been thinking about quality and safety, and particularly because it involves young kids. This is a very special and important area to pay attention to. So welcome to all of you. I think we'll have a good chat. Actually, I'll only make a few comments at the beginning, and then I'll talk about some of the questions that I would like our panelists to give their opinions on and for each of us to engage in. So let me start out by saying that the toy industry actually in India is a phenomenal industry. I think all projections are that this will grow over the next 3 to 5 years at a very high clip. I have seen projections that range from 10% to 12%. Lots of children in India, and as the economy grows, people are spending money on toys. So it's always wonderful to be in an industry which is growing. That gives everybody a lot of opportunities. So I think that's not something that we are worried about in terms of finding growth avenues. This is a great growth industry in India. However, one of the very interesting things that has happened in the toy industry over the last 50 years, toys were reserved for many parts of toys were reserved for the small scale industry sector. And that was a government policy for a long time. As a result, it's a very fragmented manufacturing industry. And because of protections for toys for a long time, the quality, the safety, and the size and scale that's required for toys in India has been very low. India is not a toy manufacturing global base for companies. But as we look forward, so that is what it is. We should accept where we are. But as we look forward, it's very clear that what the government of India wants to do and what is in India's interest is to have a very vibrant toy manufacturing industry in India, which not only produces at very high quality and very high safety, but also is competitive with the rest of the manufacturing industry in the world so that we can get some of the best manufacturers in the world to manufacture in India. So it's cost, quality, safety, all of that. And the role of multinationals in doing this is extraordinarily important. Let me give you two examples. India had a very subscale and very low quality car manufacturing in India 30 years ago. When Maruti came to India and the market opened up, India is now a high quality supplier base for around the world for small vehicles and trucks. And really, we have to thank Maruti and then later on some of the international companies like Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, who came and taught Indian manufacturers and Indian suppliers how to improve quality. I'll give you another example, which is in India, the outsourcing industry for BPOs and IT is very large. As you know, it's one of the biggest drivers in India. What many of our listeners may not know is that the origin of that is when GE 30 years ago, under Jack Welch, decided to use India as a base for outsourcing. And they found that the quality of the work that was being done and the vendor base was very weak. And they decided that they would help improve that. And Genpact, which is spun off from GE, was very instrumental in that. And so today's industry, we have to thank GE for helping improve the quality and improve the quality of the vendor base. I think there are many other such examples that have happened. And so that's in that context, I'm very, very happy to have three of the premier toy companies in the world who manufacture around the world and whose toys are sold all over the world. Because if the industry is to develop in India, it will need help from companies like you and people like you to get to the quality, safety, and scale that I think is the aspiration of India and the toy industry and the government. So that's sort of the broad set of questions I wanted to ask you. And I thought I could ask each of you if you wanted to just start out by making some comments on what is your, just for background, what is your presence in India? What do you see as some of the challenges of toys in India that you have observed? And then we can talk a little bit about what each of the companies, what are you doing to develop the manufacturing base? What are you doing to help MSMEs? What are you doing to help improve the quality safety standards in India? If that's okay, why don't we just start out with what is your current position in India? And if you don't mind, I'm just on random basis. I'll pick on Christian first, and then Joseph, and then Sanjeev, and then for the next question we'll reverse it so that you're warned. Christian, over to you.
I was just saying thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here. I think it's now 7 years ago that I last spoke in connection with the Indian Toy Fair. So very pleased to be back. So just a very brief overview then of our presence in India. So I would say we are still in an exploratory phase. We are rather new in the market here. So we are heading to grow consumer base and working with various stakeholders with a high focus on learning through play and building our partnerships. And when we have established ourselves a stronger position and also having a better understanding of the whole ecosystem, we will look at ways to expand. This is how we usually act when we enter a market. So today we have around 15 people employed as Lego employees in India. So you can see that we are indeed in a startup phase. And I suppose we'll come back to some of the other questions, but obviously it's been a special year with so many changes to regulations on how to import toys, how to verify their compliance with the rules, etc. And that this has happened in connection with the pandemic we are seeing is, of course, not helping things. So it's been a struggle in that sense, and that I think has dominated over the last year the picture of how do we get toys to the Indian market. And I don't know whether I should stop there just as an introductory remark, and then I suppose we'll revisit.
That's fine. Let's just so that everyone understands your positions in India, and then we'll go to some of the questions.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be on the panel, and I'm glad to join my esteemed colleagues. We value the partnership with the Indian government as well as the industry. So I started my career in India about 15 years ago. I was actually with GE and with Philips, so I
good
long history and making medical devices in India, so long history of manufacturing. And that Mattel started its partnership with India back in the late 80s. And today we have over 100 domestic licensed partners. We have manufacturing under contract manufacturing, either packaging, paper, pigments, fabric suppliers, even finished goods suppliers, predominantly for the domestic market. And so, we believe that's the opportunity, is how do you grow that manufacturing base so that we could also export toys? And that comes to how do we apply our quality standards to each one of those finished goods, the suppliers and the vendors, is if they're going to be part of the Mattel family of brands, how do you hold them up to our highest standards of safety and quality? So we've made a significant investment in building that local capability. We go through our quality system. We try to have our partners adopt that, or at least leverage it to build their own quality system so that they understand our compliance and our standards. With the rich history of our product lines, how long we've been in the industry, and obviously partnerships with our esteemed colleagues here as well on different standards and committees, how do you adopt them and build them into the manufacturing process? And what we believe the opportunity is, I've seen previously in other industries, the first step is to adopt the designs that we currently have and have them manufactured in India. The other opportunity is, how do you design from the start, right? Because you want to design quality in the process right from the beginning, and have that quality aspect within the design, the manufacturing, and then within finished goods as we deliver the products. And as that increases, that opportunity, not only for the domestic market grows, but then also for exportation. So really, really pleased to be here.
Thank you. Sanjeev?
Yeah, so good afternoon, and really pleased to be here as part of this forum. And thank you also, Mr. Zainul Bhai, for providing such an excellent perspective on how the toy industry has what the background has been over the years, and how we want to shape it going forward. And also it is very interesting to hear your examples of other industries and how they have evolved. So thanks for providing that perspective. Hasbro in India, while it has been present now for a very long time, and also had a partnership through Fun School, and so has been present in the Indian market for a very long time. However, we were actually amongst the first of the global organizations in really identifying the potential of India to be a manufacturing base for the global market. So with that intention, we actually started a separate initiative about 5 years ago in India by setting up a sourcing office out here in Pune, which is where I am also located, and with the specific intention of working with identified manufacturing partners and other suppliers to really create a sort of a base and bring in the global manufacturing standards for toy manufacture into the country. So that has been actually quite an interesting journey. We have grown from a relatively small nucleus of products into now a situation where we can proudly state that we are the largest manufacturer and exporter of toys out of India. Hasbro does not make the toys on its own as an in-house manufacturing activity. Hasbro works with manufacturing partners, OEM vendors, and their suppliers to really develop an ecosystem like a supply chain. And that has really been part of our journey over the last few years, taking one step at a time, qualifying our manufacturing partners, bringing them up to the relevant quality standards, developing a base of suppliers who can meet the very demanding requirements of the toys standards globally. That really has been our journey so far. And we are very excited about the fact that now there are so many initiatives being taken by the government of India to develop a strong manufacturing base in India for the global market. And I'm sure some of the work that we have done in developing a sort of an international quality set of operations will play a role. And we look forward to some of the other major manufacturers also now coming into India so that we can really expand the full range of products and really develop India as a major manufacturing hub going forward. So that's really been our journey so far.
Terrific. Thank you. So as I said, I'll now go in reverse order, Sanjeev. So let me start with you. And since you've already developed a supply base and have helped some companies develop an ecosystem, can you talk about what are some of the challenges you faced in building up that supply base? What did you have to do with MSMEs so that they could get up to the quality? And what have you learned in doing it? How long does it take? Are you finding people are open to it, etc.?
Oh, yes. India has strong technical capabilities, manufacturing capabilities, right? we've had some very good manufacturing partners and suppliers to work with. However, we must recognize that it's pretty challenging to develop a manufacturing base and an ecosystem for toys, mainly because our range of products is very diverse. The kind of materials, the kind of technologies deployed are very diverse. Like you got a wide range of products. Any of the global companies would have, for example, it would have board games, it would have electronics toys, or it would have soft toys, uh, action figures, girls products. So it's a very diverse range of products, which really requires a very extensive supply chain with a very large range of materials and components to be used. So it is really the approach which needs to be taken is to take one step at a time, start with a core set of very simple products, bring the whole concept and understanding of the toy requirements with respect to the safety standards and the quality standards that need to be followed. So we basically start by identifying manufacturing partners who have the basic sort of capabilities, taking them through a very rigorous kind of onboarding process to establish the fundamentals in terms of the quality management system, teaching them on how to manage their supply chain, their incoming materials, their manufacturing processes, the development process, and ultimately the quality standards for the finished goods manufacturer. So that has really been the learning curve that we've been going through. So therefore, I would say that it is something which we've had reasonably good success, but then it has also been a journey where I would say we are still on that journey as we expand the product range and as we grow our presence significantly in India.
Thank you. Can I now request Joseph to also comment on that question?
Yeah, so I think, it's similarly, you start your manufacturing, you have a tendency to start with your simpler products or even just part with the supply chain, right? So I think that's the opportunity, packaging, as I said, paper, pigments, some of the fabrics. So they start more as a supplier, then they migrate to a finished goods vendor. And then you also end up, especially with the entrepreneurs, have them actually manufacture a finished product that could not only be sold domestically, but also through exportation. So what we try to do is we invest in a lot of training, and it's not just the quality aspects or its safety, but it's also operationally, right? So there's efficiencies, there's things that we've learned over the years of how to manufacture. I think that's one of the benefits of Mattel is because we are still both a manufacturer of products as well as a partner with a lot of our suppliers to manufacture for us. And so those benefits is we learn best practices within our own facilities. We then are able to then train and teach others to do it just as well. And so that's usually the benefit of having an owned and operated. You build efficiencies, you build productivity, you understand how to not only make great designs of toys, but you understand how to design manufacturability, right? So manufacturability, inspectability, how do you ensure the overall quality of the product? How do you build that into the process? And then how do you educate others to be able to replicate that? And so I think that's typically something that Mattel brings with its rich history is not only to set up the supply chain, but they're able to educate and allow them to actually benefit from those learnings that we've had and build them into their processes.
Thank you. Christian, as you build products in different parts of the world, and as you look at the Indian manufacturing ecosystem, any thoughts or comments on that? I know you're still looking at it and entering, but it would be helpful to get your perspective on it.
Yes, so we are in the phase where we are building our relationships with distributors, with retailers, and of course already there it's important to have a focus on high quality. And the way we have over the last 50, 60 years sort of refined the manufacturing principles for our particular type of plastic toys, the building system. I think we have gained a lot of experience of the importance of having suppliers that can ensure they live up to the same quality. And that, of course, requires a lot of training, a very close relationship with the suppliers. And I would think that's also what I hear my colleagues saying, that when you select suppliers, you need to cooperate, you need to do the training together to bring them up to the quality levels. And you have to start from with a limited range and then expand, because indeed the toy industry does use like every type of material there is. So I fully understand what my colleagues are saying, and we can see that in other parts of the world.
And I guess one question I think for all of you, the next question that I want to ask you is, as you look at the supplier base in India and the quality, I guess you should comment on whether the products that you sell in India, do you have a global standard for quality, number one, and number two, are you are able to build to that global standard in India? And then number three, compared to other parts of the world where a lot of toy manufacturing occurs, what are your observations on the capability and the quality and safety in India? Would be very helpful to understand how big a road it is and how big a challenge it is. So why
Right.
don't I start with you now, Joseph, since
Thank you. Yeah, so I think there's great manufacturing in India, so it's now taking that skill set and applying it to this industry. And so I think that is the opportunity to try to leverage some of the other supply chains that are already well established and bring them in. But it is about the global standards, right? So if you want to export, you have to meet global regulations. And so I'm sure, as my colleagues will tell you as well, we don't have different sets. We whether we're making it domestically or expecting to export it, we want global standards to be met. And so that's why we provide them with our responsible supply chain commitments, our quality system requirements, to make sure that they understand at the end of the day, they're making a global product, even if they're only going to sell it domestically. Because if it's going to have our logo, or I'm sure one of our colleagues' logos, the expectations is that it meets the global standards that we expect, that we adhere to. We don't try to treat one child differently in one side of the world than any other else. A child is a child, and we expect that same. It's the safety levels, it's the quality, but then it's also reliability and durability, right? I think that's a fundamental difference as well. And some of those aspects, those are harder to obtain. You can have safety, and you can try to build compliance in by over testing. You could try to ensure quality by having lots of in-process inspection, but building actual durable products, reliable products that are going to last. We try to build products that last at least multiple children's lifetimes, right?
yes.
And so how do you do that? Children like to play, and they like to play hard, and you want to have a very reliable, durable product. And so those things are learned as well as designed. So there are some aspects of it, designing it in and understanding those standards to be able to do so. But then it's technique, and it's some infrastructure, but also some culturally and commitment on how to make good product. And so those are some of the things that we're learning. But again, I think the opportunity in India, they have done so well in some other areas. We shouldn't shy away from capitalizing on the knowledge that they've built in other industries. I think both of my colleagues have said it's very fascinating to me. I grew up in automotive, aerospace, and life sciences before I came to toys. And I think I needed all of those industries to understand how to be good at toys.
That's a good.
So I'll leave it there to my colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, good. Christian, any comments on that, and then I'll come to Sanjeev.
Yes, I fully agree. When it comes to the global product, every box will contain exactly the same bricks wherever we sell it in the world, and therefore we also implement exactly the same quality system, the same product safety rules, etc., across the world wherever we manufacture. And I see no good reason why that wouldn't be possible also in India. Maybe to add to what Joseph says is, of course, that we are now we've traditionally had a very high focus on product safety and quality, but now we're also looking at sustainability, circularity, longevity of the products. I mean, the longer a product can last, the better from a sustainability point of view. And I would also say that there is something about culture to transfer the culture of the company to the suppliers so that they fully understand what is the aim, what are our ambitions. So yes, I agree with Joseph, and I think the global concept is for the larger brands, it's a necessity. You can't sort of produce different quality in 4 different markets, even though there are slight differences in regulations. All products have to comply with everything across the globe.
Sanjeev, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Joseph and Christian that for organizations like Hasbro, Mattel, or Logo, this is fundamental. The fact that the product that you make over here, whether it is for the Indian market or for the global market, has to comply with and meet the global standards, right? And that's really part of our effort, and that's why the process has to be, like I said, taken one step at a time in terms of training our manufacturing partners, the suppliers, developing in them a level of awareness and understanding regarding those specific products, developing the skill sets in the workforce, and also the unique feature, or to some extent, a feature which is different about the toys industry, is that our designs are fast evolving. Our product range is fast evolving, unlike some of the other consumer goods or other industries, even like automotive to some extent, right? So it requires a rapid kind of a customization and evolution, which actually takes a certain kind of time to get used to and get into that culture and way of working. So I would say that, like you were asking in the beginning, like how fast can we grow? I think that is something which one has to take measured steps in that direction to be able to really be a kind of a source of manufacture which can continue to meet global standards in a reliable manner, in a consistent manner. I think we got to create that foundation, that capability, and to some extent be patient about it and have a clear roadmap in terms of building capability as we go along.
And what would you, so I'll start again with you, Sanjeev, so that we can go the reverse round.
Sure.
What would you say are the biggest barriers that you have seen in terms of building up indigenous capability for toys? Is it, for you, obviously it can't be designed because you all are designing it, right? Designing the toys. But, does
Yes.
India have, for a wider set, does India have the design capability? What were the other barriers that you saw? You said it's a very structured and process, it's step by step, which sort of
Yes.
implies it's going to take a long time because there are many barriers that you're facing. So I was curious, what are the barriers that you have faced and are facing going forward, to do this?
Yeah, I think the barriers to some extent may be relating to the quality and safety, but the barriers and some of the hurdles which need to be overcome may be relating to other factors also, right? It's possibly also into capabilities like design and development and the lead time that it takes for us, because the toy industry is relatively very young in India at the moment.
Yes.
So the kind of support infrastructure in terms of development, the design, to a great extent, we depend upon support from overseas in terms of bringing those concepts, those designs into India at this point in time. And that inevitably leads to a higher lead time in terms of translating that into a finished product and speed to market, right? So that's really not something which I would say is a quality and safety related inhibitor, but it is an overall, from a market facing perspective,
Sure.
It's a consideration, right? From a quality and safety and a capability standpoint, I think it's basically about what is it that you're looking forward in terms of the quality of materials that you want to develop for your range of products. How fast do you want to expand the base of suppliers for different types of materials, and how fast they can cope with your requirements? Because the requirements for the toys industry are unlike any of the standards in other industries. In terms, just to take chemical safety as an example, the requirements in terms of the bill of substances and the chemical composition of the materials used in toys are fairly, I would say, ahead of a lot of other industries. And it takes the supply base some time to be able to source the right materials, to develop the relevant reliability in the sourcing and the supply chain to be able to cope with that. So these are some of the, you could say, steps that we need to go through as we go on expanding our activities. So I would not call it a real challenge. It's more of a learning that we need to go through. And the technical capability exists, but we just need to kind of evolve in that direction.
Can I ask you to comment on that?
Yes, I think looking at the global product, as we just said, that there is also something about having a global set of requirements from the other side. So we have the ambition to create a global product, but we are facing problems with how regulations differ. And I think it's super important for the whole sector to not have a bad reputation in general. And that bad reputation can come from substandard toys being sold or imported to a market. And here we have also a counterfeit problem. And these factors are very important that the industry as a whole can keep up to a certain level. And to do that, we also need to have rules which are as common as possible. If we look at the standard side, we have 3 sets of standards in the world, but the main standard will be the international standard, which is also then reflected in the Indian standards. And I think in order to create this global set of high quality, high products, well, toys with a high level of product safety, it's necessary to avoid too many diverging rules in different countries, because that will also be confusing for the supplier side. And I think there is a risk that these differing regulations will create barriers to growth, and it will also be difficult to develop the domestic industry if a country has very different rules than other countries. Now, on the standard side, India is obviously using the ISO standards, which I think is great. And on the regulatory side, I think as manufacturers, we sometimes experience that we test and we comply with different requirements in different markets, but they're really the same. So we test and we test and we test, but it doesn't really change the product. It's more showing that the product is okay. And I think one great initiative from India would be to join the ISO community, to be part of developing the toy safety standards that will apply in India, and be there to shape them and to ensure that they're up to the appropriate level, and also to contribute to a more solid regulatory environment by always implementing the up-to-date standards, because there is also the risk that we create and develop standards, but if not the latest version is used across the countries, then we will still remain with differing requirements.
You'll be stuck. Yeah, that's right. That's very helpful. And Joseph, any thoughts from you on what are the barriers to the creation of a large toy industry in India, domestic manufacturing industry?
Yeah, I think Sanjeev and Christian have summarized it well. What I'll suggest is not a barrier as much as an opportunity, right? So I think the challenge is it's so natural to look at what we've done in the past 20 or 30 years ago and try to bring that to India. I would argue the landscape is too competitive, and you don't have that amount of time to try to go through all the learnings other countries have already gone through. But so here's the opportunity, right? So today, everything is digitized, right? Our designs are digitized. So having the engineering in India to be able to take that digital design and build their own, design their own molds and be able to design their own lines and automation and bring that digitization into manufacturing would get you a step further and a step closer to competing, right? So I think that's one. And I think we should take advantage of that. I think that's the challenge. You typically are trying to solve this from a labor standpoint and looking at older methodologies and approaches to processes, when I think you should take advantage of the digitization. So I think that's one.
Right.
Two, the second is sustainability. And so the supply chain for sustainability isn't there yet, especially in the toys. and we struggle with things like ensuring traceability, homogenization, ethical sourcing. We have to have a lot of compliance and lots of oversight to do that. So I think there's an opportunity for the Indian market to step up there, right? So again, if you're trying to be competitive, here's an aspect of the market that everybody is still trying to compete. No one has done it right yet. And so a huge opportunity. And then the third is we know the toy industry is evolving. This concept of digital play, virtual play, and physical play is migrating into the design of products. And with all the technology, what you mentioned, like the Gen Packs and the Wipros and the HCLs, of all that technology expertise that exists, the opportunity to bring that kind of leverage to toys is another opportunity. So I think those are three areas where I think India could actually show
very interesting
weight there. So
yeah, good. No, I was I was so let me start my next question. I can start with you, Joseph, because it builds on this. I was just going to say that India today is one of the leading places for digital in the world. There's a report that's just come out from NASSCOM, which is the India IT body, that says the IT industry will grow to 350 billion in the next 5 years. And I still remember 20 years ago, we did the study that says it'll get to 10 billion, and everyone laughed, right? And here we are. And actually, the total supply of engineers trained in digital technologies is very, very high in India. And so I was going to ask you, as in many, if you look at a car today, a lot of the value added is in software and digital products, and that's happening in many, many different products that are, and I wonder if even in toys, if this isn't an opportunity, as you said, both merging digital and physical play, but even the level of software that is within toys, as I see, right? I saw that even for various of your products, you have lots of software in them. And I think even for Lego, right, I can see our kids designing complex engineering things that run with coding on those things, right? And is that an opportunity in India that we haven't really as yet taken advantage of?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a huge opportunity there. And again, some of the partners I mentioned, and I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention Cognizant, because they're a great partner of ours as well. And so, I think the technology, the knowledge is there to bring that into the products. And it's not only, it's the software, it's the interaction, it's the online. You have to have products today that not only have embedded products, but actually could adjust the play pattern, right? And so having those kind of thought processes to build algorithms into products so that the child can play with a play pattern in one aspect, but then modify and be able to use that same product in another play pattern. And so, and then, and some of my colleagues have these aspects too, but having that product be able to communicate and interact with other toys. So you actually see the interaction of toys. So that creates different play patterns. Having toys that actually interact online. And then, as we know with COVID, being able to have your toy interact online with someone else's toy. And so that you actually create this dynamic, huge opportunity, I think, with the technology base that we have in India.
Christian and then Sanjeev, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yes, obviously India is so well known for let's say the digital competence, and we're already using in many aspects Indian companies on IT issues, and there is a very exciting development going on, as you referred to. Also in our toy range, we are seeing more and more products that can both physically and digitally engage children. And here, of course, there's also some very important aspects on digital safety, or what we call responsible digital engagement with children, that you can also build in a safe manner for children to engage digitally without putting them at risk when communicating with others and using their toys. But I can clearly see how India can contribute with the knowledge in this area to both include exciting new features at the same time as they can be kept safe for children.
Yeah, I think this point about digital or digitization is very interesting. I think India has built a fairly good capability in certain areas linked to toys or entertainment. Like, for example, I believe that we got very good capabilities now in areas like animation, for example, right? Which is more about the 2D in terms of digitalization. But we now also possibly, as there is greater interest in the whole toy industry in India, how we can convert the 2D approach more into a 3D approach, like how can we convert those digital concepts and ideas into physical concepts, right? So how can we replicate, how can we model, how can we even for, evaluation of designs, do this digital to physical using tools like, for example, 3D printing or any other tools which can convert or make this transfer happen from the digital to the physical, right? I think that's probably an area which the government also could play a role, both in terms of promoting the digital aspect, right? How can we, for example, have better emphasis and stronger emphasis in our educational institutions relating to design, relating to coding, competitions. There are some governments which are already, some state governments which are taking initiatives and in that direction. And then further working it down towards how can the government even promote, just as an example, 3D printing in the industry in India, and probably some of those concepts, since the government has at the top of its mind how to support the traditional toys industry, right? The artisans or those clusters of traditional toys. How could some of these kind of tools be deployed even to kind of, you could say, build those industries in a better manner, right, over a period of time? So I think that the digital is a good way to leapfrog, like Joseph also said, that's something which is a very useful way to kind of bridge some of this time gap which exists or lag which exists between India and the traditional sources of toy manufacture across the world. So I think it's a good thing to kind of pursue. Yeah.
So I just wanted to comment on this. There is a survey that was just released about skilling.
Yeah.
And they interviewed some 60,000 people, kids who are about to graduate from high school. The number one demand from kids graduating from high school was Python programming.
Yeah, exactly, coding.
In terms of skill, which is very interesting. I thought, I think this is the capability will continue to grow, and many industries are snapping up these people like crazy, especially because digital has really grown during the COVID time. So that's how I was just raising this. It was an interesting development. I had not really realized how much it has grown.
So give those children, for example, 3D printers also, right, in the schools.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So they can play around. Give these artisans some of those facilities. Their children can learn coding, and their children can design things for them.
Right.
So how can the government promote this whole ecosystem in terms of developing this skill, starting from the design stage itself? I think that can be a pretty powerful tool for the country.
Yeah, and I think that's the other opportunity. So I think Sanjay just triggered a couple things. This direct to consumer is really growing, especially with toys. And so we're going to be challenged over the next several years. The life cycle of the toy that we've traditionally had, where the toy it gets favored during the holiday season and it goes through several years, but the demands for these toys, I think, is going to change more rapidly. And so how do we adapt to that fairly quickly? And then we also know, the buy patterns, not only has COVID shown the buy pattern, but the ability, people, they want products sooner rather than later. And they don't necessarily have to go to a retailer to get them. Now, we love our retailer partners, but they have direct to consumer markets too. So how do we supply to them faster so they can get them to market to the consumer faster?
Right.
So how do we package them? How fastly and how quickly we could adapt as the demand changes. not only to the volume, but even the designs themselves. And then how do you get into production? So as Sanjeev said, so if you can get into 3D printing or something where you can get to a product faster to market, so we can get them into a retailer's marketplace so they could go directly to consumer, that would be a huge opportunity.
Okay. No, that's terrific. Thank you. As we are running out of time, I'm going to ask one more question and then give each of you a chance to make an ending comment. And my one question is, there are lots of entrepreneurs who are starting up businesses in India. And if an entrepreneur wants to become a manufacturer of toys and a supplier to you, what would you tell them and what would you want them to do? So let me start with Christian.
That's a very good question, since we aren't quite there yet. But if we look at how we have acted in other markets, I think it's a matter of presenting the global quality standards, the global responsible sourcing standards, and to ensure that there is full understanding of the importance of being able to deliver to those standards that are our benchmark or our aim. And I think there is a need for suppliers to be active, in local toy associations, in local standardization committees, to be active, to learn the global, not only trade, but the global standards, and be on the forefront.
So, you had mentioned earlier about MSMEs, and also now you kind of highlighting the need to work with local entrepreneurs, right? Now, I think that's really at the core of what we do at the moment in India. Those are really our business partners in India. Like, we have our manufacturing partners and their suppliers who are really, you could say, MSMEs, who fall squarely into the MSME kind of bracket. And so we work with them, even if they are relatively small in size to begin with. But as long as they have a certain level of passion for manufacturing, for making products of the type that we need, the quality standards, we work with them to grow their business, grow their capability, and really make them a really part of a global supply chain, really. So that's really something which is at the center of what we do out here in India.
Thank you. Joseph?
Yeah, I just to add to Christian and Sanjeev, especially on the supply chain, I think that's really the opportunity for the MSMEs. There's so many aspects of the supply chain that they could become really expert at, right? And so whether you're a packaging expert, a printing expert because of labeling, instructions, packaging, boxing, fabrics, we talked about chemicals today. There's so many licensed products that they could build. I think the challenge for the MSMEs is try not to be everything for, the entire product line. I think the opportunities, there are niche markets or niche processes, if you will, that they could really capitalize on and specialize in, because the supply chain is so broad, right? So I think that's really, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, there's so many aspects of the supply chain that they can really get a foothold in, create an expertise, and we would all end up using them because we do share a lot of suppliers and vendors together, especially the good ones. And so I think that's, my recommendation is find that niche space, especially in the supply chain. And if you can have, as Christian said, the safety and the quality, and as Sanjeev said, the entrepreneurship, the ability to have that cultural commitment to the global standards, those are the partners that we want. We want that aggressive, passionate aspects of safety, quality, and compliance, but bringing that unique value as well.
Thank you. And now, just given the time, it's impossible to summarize this wonderful discussion. But, I think I took away several points from it, which is that you're all committed to the Indian market. It's an exciting market. You all are developing supplier bases in here, the opportunities for people who can meet the global quality, safety, sustainability, circularity. I forget, I missed one, Christian, that you mentioned. Standards would be very important. And if you can do that, the world's the limit, in a sense, for you. And particularly a new area, which is very interesting, is the whole idea of digital the whole idea of using digital technologies to increase both physical and digital playtime, etc. And that's something India is good at. So it's a great opportunity to do that. So the opportunities are great. I'd like to end with a comment from each of you on, as you look over the next 5 years, are you excited, very excited, cautious about toys in India? Christian, I'll start with you.
I'm very excited about the Indian market. I mean, it's a huge market, and it's there is room for development, but there's already a maturity in a sense. I would come back to the importance of also at the high level to make sure that India is engaged, for example, in the standards community, that India should join.
That's a good one.
And I think that will also help then create national committees. It will help sort of to make this flow out to suppliers and create this general understanding. But I would also say that we are facing a difficult regulatory environment, and there is also something about regulatory stability that is important when you invest in countries. That too many changes will make you hesitant on how far into the future you can forecast. So we have a very difficult situation now with the COVID situation and the inability for auditors to travel to make factory inspections so that we can get licenses for our toys to have any toys imported after the 1st of April. That is a big acute challenge. But on the longer run, it's a super exciting market.
Great. Joseph?
Yeah, I'll echo that. Yeah, I think it is a very exciting market and very exciting opportunities. And, we value play for a purpose. And purposeful play. It's one of our mantras, and how we develop children, their imaginations, their creativity, and help them grow and learn. And so, what a better place to do that than in India, where you have a great population of people, and the desire and passion to learn is there and present. And so how do you bring that to toys? But to echo what Christian, I think it's really important for the Indian government to make sure they're part of, with CEN and ASTM, they signed a technical cooperation agreement a couple of years ago. There's committee members that go across the different groups. I think making sure India is a part of that, so that it's really if you want to be a global player, you have to have global standards, and you have to be part of that narrative, because making sure there's harmonization across standards and regulations is really important. That's what makes you allowed to be able, if you're going to be able to export from India to 50 different countries, if you had to do that,
have to be that,
ways, it's going to be too costly, right? So harmonizing those standards is critical, and building that into the fabric of the manufacturing process and into the quality system, having that high demand for a high standard of safety and quality and compliance, that's a differentiator. And bringing that to the table, coupling it with the digitization, I think is a winner for India. So,
thank you, Sanjeev. Any parting thoughts?
I think I totally echo Joseph's and Christian's comments. I think it's important to see the connection between the Indian market and also manufacturing for exports. Having a vibrant ecosystem for the Indian market, where we can develop concepts, develop designs, the ease of doing business for the Indian market will have a very important role to play also in ensuring that we have a competitive manufacturing hub for the global market. It is not, I would say, distinct from each other. So that's really something which I totally echo, that the ease of doing business part, as we take this as a major initiative, as an Indian government and a national priority, I think that aspect does require attention in a significant manner, I feel. So I totally support these observations. And while we're working on this, I would say that being from India, we see a good, optimism, I would say, in terms of being able to grow India as a manufacturing base. It's a matter of pride for us that now we make products and our manufacturing partners make products which go all over the world and are on the retail shelves all over the world. Yes, that's a beginning, but I think some of these business enablers, which my colleagues have just spoken about, they're very important, I would say.
Okay. Great. So let me end by saying thank you very much for joining us and for a very open and comprehensive conversation. I think lots of good ideas have come out, and this is a great opportunity for many, many companies that are listening to this, for many MSMEs, for many entrepreneurs. You've heard from some of the major companies in the world that there's a great opportunity. You have to step up to it, but there's a great opportunity. So with that, I will say thank you once again, and we will end this session. Thank you.